Hello, Mindset Recovery friends. Um, this is Roberto. I I made a video recently called a couple weeks ago. I don't remember. It was called Recovery Period, something like that. So if nobody really subscribes to my channel, but if you've ever seen any of my videos, I'm not going to go into too much past. If you're watching this one, please go back and watch some previous videos so you can get my background so I don't continue to tread the same ground. But uh, so I have been in and out of 12 step recovery for 35 years, had limited success. Came to the 12 step program with higher power that I had, my idea of a higher power, which is the God of the Bible. Um, but I never could stay clean for any length of time. My life remained unmanageable, and that's because I felt like you know, I I could do what I wanted to do and not change any of the negative behaviors and kind of ask God to help me lose the desire to use. And I was continuing to do shady stuff. And long story short, that just didn't get me free of the negative coping mechanisms that I'd been using throughout my using career, like drugs, alcohol, sexual behavior that was inappropriate, porn, all different kind of things, and then plus, pride, anger, self pity, all the things that go along with it. Anybody who's ever been involved and done any work in the program, when you do your inventories, you kind of uncover that stuff. But you do that inventory and you find out what's messing you up, and then ideally you make a decision to remove the things that are impacting your life negatively and ultimately the people around you. And then that's where the 12 steps come in. You do the work with a sponsor, and your higher power helps you remove acting out on those character defects, and you continue to learn about yourself as you continue through the 12 steps, which is an ongoing process. Well, anyway, so as I've said before, so I came to this program with an idea of a higher power of my understanding, but I wasn't, I just expected God to, work for me and do what I wanted him to do. So basically, I was my higher power and I was asking him to do the things that I couldn't do for myself, but I wasn't willing to do any of the things that I needed to do to improve my character and, get any discipline in my life. And so when my life finally burned to the ground around me, and I was afraid that I was going to die because, in my active addiction, because I got away with things for so long, I came to believe that, I could keep on doing those things and everything would be okay. But eventually, my Tower of Babel fell to the ground, and, then I was left in the wreckage of my own making, and I had to crawl out of it. And then I needed to really learn to submit to my higher power and try to do his will and not mine. And that's an ongoing process. And as a powerless human being, it forces us to rely upon a higher power in order to be able to do the things that we want to do, that we need to do, that we know our higher power wants us to do, and to stop doing the things that we need to stop doing. And that for me requires me to stay in contact with other people who are on the same path of recovery as I am, and to continue to work on my character and delve into the character defects and what caused them, maybe traumatic things in my childhood. I mean, anyway, that if you're in 12 step recovery and you're working the program, which a lot of people aren't working the program. I wasn't working the program for 35 years. I was just coming in and, I learned all the language and, I sounded good, but I kept going out and getting high. And so, I found some freedom from that through Narcotics Anonymous. It taught me some discipline, got a sponsor, helped me learn how to live differently because that's the goal. We can the Narcotics Anonymous promises their only promise is that any addict, can lose the desire to use and find a new way to live. And so, it doesn't promise you that you're going to make a bunch of money or get a beautiful wife or drive a Mercedes or anything. But we once we are not spinning our wheels trying to do the same thing over and over again and gain all that stuff, and sometimes through nefarious means like illegally or whatever, stealing and selling drugs, whatever it may be, we start to learn to pay our own way, and that nobody really owes us anything, and that we can basically do whatever we want if we're willing to put our minds to it and put in the effort. And they say if you want what we have, you have to do what we did. And so you look at the successful people in the program that have the recovery you want and the life you want, and you kind of emulate those people. And so that's where, changing people, places, and things comes in. If you're hanging out with knuckleheads, you're going to be a knucklehead. And if you're hanging out with people in the program that are successful, you are going to be like the people that you spend your time with. So it's making better decisions. Drug uses and sex is all about instant gratification. So then we kind of have to grow up and learn that we have to delay gratification. We have to be willing to work for what we want in the future. And as I've heard, you either pay now and play later, or you play now and you pay later, but you are going to pay. There's another one that says if you want to dance, you got to pay the fiddler. So these are all, I'm an older guy, so I heard all these little sayings and stuff from back in the day. People don't usually say that stuff anymore, but they hold true for me. So I wanted to play now, and I played for a long time, and then eventually, I crashed and burned, and now I had to learn to pay, and it's finally paying off in my life. So I love the 12-step program. I started in AA. I could not stay clean in AA. I've learned in NA that there were people who've gotten clean before before NA started in the 50s. There were people who successfully worked the program of recovery through AA and the 12 steps, but it was tough for a lot of addicts. And so somebody from NA who was one of the original members who had issues with drugs as well as alcohol, he decided to start Narcotics Anonymous, and it's basically the same program, but the membership is made up of people who alcohol was not their only substance making their lives unmanageable. So then you get surrounded by people who have experience with exactly the types of things and feelings and emotions that you had, and for me, I found I could relate better with them, and I had identification, and that started me on the road to cleaning up my life. And so now, fast forward, that was 5 years ago that I began that journey. Took me 2 years to get drugs and alcohol out of my life. And so then I drank a beer and then two beers during the 2.5 years leading up to now. And but I mean, it's not saying it's okay to do that, but for me, say one is too many and a thousand's never enough. Well, not advocating that somebody who has a problem with drugs and alcohol to try that experiment, but for me, it didn't cause me to go back out and burn my life to the ground. So then I got cocky and complacent, and I decided that I could, I'm obviously, this is not my problem, and so I can still do it. And I have been successfully. I decided on New Year's that I was going to get back on the water wagon, as they say in AA, and I did attempt to not drink at all. I was planning on doing at least 4 months and then, rethink it. And so we had a snowstorm around here, and, classically in my using, I made up my mind a lot of times to change my ways. And then, I'm good at coming up with excuses like, whatever, I'm celebrating something or whatever. So on the 10th, which I didn't know at the time, but January 10th is National Quitters Day. I come to find out later. And that's usually when a lot of people run out of steam on their New Year's resolution of dieting or going to the gym or quitting drinking or whatever it is that they're trying to do to change their lives. They usually run out of steam by the second Friday in January. And so coincidentally, it snowed. I couldn't go to a meeting, and I wanted to get up to the store and buy some groceries with my son before the snowstorm hit because I knew I was going to be stuck in my house for a few days. And while I was there, I used it as an excuse to get me a few beers. And I came home, I drank those beers, broke my New Year's resolution, but I did not get drunk. I did not attempt to go back out in the frozen weather, dangerous roads, and buy more alcohol. So it didn't negatively impact me. What I've learned is that I can do anything I want as long as I'm willing to put up with the consequences. And I was talking to a friend in recovery, and at this point, I listened to a podcast the other day, and this is a guy that I know that's a drug counselor, and he got sober in AA. His issue is that he has a problem with the higher power thing, and there are a lot of people who have that issue. And depending on your experience growing up with the higher power of your childhood and how it was presented to you and the idea that you have of whatever that God may be, you may have some resentments with that. If it was presented to you as somebody who was just standing there with a stick looking down from heaven waiting for you to make a mistake and whack you on the head, and he was going to screw you up if you did bad things, then maybe you're not willing to turn your will and your life over to that guy because he sounds like a tool. And so now, when they say in the 12-step programs that you can have a higher power of your understanding, just has to be loving, caring, have your best interest in mind, certain good qualities. And then you can kind of formulate the rest on your own. And then you choose to believe in that higher power. And then as you work the steps and the program and stay away from what's making your life unmanageable, you see good things happening to you in your life. And then you start to trust that higher power, and then you can turn more and more over to your higher power. So that's, basically how it's supposed to work. The 12th step is having had a spiritual awakening as the result of these steps. So obviously the steps are designed for you to have a spiritual awakening. So, my situation is that, I had a relationship with my higher power, but it was skewed. And, addiction is a very self-centered disease. And so, I'm a super selfish person. And, so I was just trying to use my higher power to get my will done, and that would never work for me. But once I got the discipline of Narcotics Anonymous, I have gotten a very good connection with my higher power, conscious contact, which is what they say in the program. But that is basically, if your higher power exists and it's an all powerful force, the universe or whatever that loves you and is willing to help you in your recovery, then obviously if you believe in that, it already existed. It didn't appear when you started believing in it, but you didn't have a contact with that because, you have all this other junk that's in the way. It's like a radio that's messed up and you can't tune in the station to get the insight and direction from that higher power. But the higher power is there. So, in the steps, the 11th step is through prayer and meditation, you get a more conscious contact with that higher power. So I've concentrated a lot on that. Meditation, I've talked about that. Meditation has really helped me, calm my mind and be able to understand my thoughts and where they're leading to. And when I'm on a bad path with what I'm thinking, it's going to lead me to, I have enough experience with bad thought patterns and where they lead to, now that I can recognize them, I can try to change that before I follow it through. I can play the tape to the end, as they say, and see where this is going to lead. But that's why you're supposed to also have a network of people that are on the same path that you can talk to on a regular basis, so that when you start being honest with them and telling you the kind of things that are going through your head and what you're wanting to do or how you're interpreting situations, if their head's in the right place, it's a lot easier to recognize crazy thoughts in another person. And so, sometimes it's impossible to spot self deception. But when your buddy starts telling you something that's just whack, if you have a good relationship with them, you can say, yeah, man, I don't know, dude, that doesn't sound right to me. This is what I think. And you have enough people that you're talking to, and, they're all telling you that that's whack. If you're open minded, if you're so honesty, willingness, and open minded. So if you're not honest with them, they're not going to know what's going on. And then if you're not open minded, then you're just going to dismiss what they say and say, no, I know what I'm doing, man. You're wrong. All you people are wrong and I'm right. So that's not open mindedness, which is a spiritual principle. And then there's willingness. So if everybody tells me that that's not right, and that I'm cruising for a bruise, and as my dad used to say, going down that path, I have to be willing to do something different, because repeating the same mistakes over and over again and expecting different results is insanity. But if I don't realize that I'm repeating the same mistake over and over again, I just have this broad idea, then I am still going to repeat those things over and over again. And then I have to be willing to do something different if I want different results. So, I've learned all this in recovery, and application is the key, because you can know all that stuff. And if you don't apply any of it to your life, then you're not going to get any benefit. So basically, I said all that to say that, I'm kind of customizing my recovery to myself. And, that can be a dangerous thing. A lot of people try to do that in early recovery, and, it's a dead end. It's a fast train to nowhere. You go back out and all that. But at this point in my recovery, the podcast I was listening to is what's the difference between sobriety and recovery. And so I really related a lot with what the guy shared. And he's been sober and in recovery for like 6 years, and he started to chug along. And he said, for him, sobriety is concentrating on not drinking. So, being clean in NA, it's concentrating on not putting substances in your body. And, it's been said a lot of times. I've heard it said that clean time does not equal recovery, because some people, maybe they've been clean 20, 30 years and they're still a butthole, or they're still, they're not drinking or smoking crack anymore, but they're in bad relationships. They got some kind of bad, you know, coping mechanisms that are coming out in their lives. And so they haven't really progressed in their recovery. And then other people, and I mean, of course, I like to think that I'm one of those that, I had enough head knowledge from being in the rooms for 35 years, and I had enough experience with my higher power that I pretty much had been told and heard how I was supposed to be operating. But I was stubborn, and I put myself first, and I did what I wanted to do, and I wasn't having it to, I wasn't going to deny myself anything. And so, what this program for me is all about is, knowing what to do, getting in contact with a group of men who I can talk to and be honest with, and then be open-minded to listen to what they say, and then be willing to make adjustments. And my recovery has been strong enough because of the fact that I've worked a good program and I put enough into it that I can recognize when I'm on the wrong track. And I can seek out the tools that this program has taught me. But I think a lot of people who have been in 12-step programs, and it's not everybody, but I think a lot of people, it turns into a dogma, and it's like a religion. And you have to do it exactly the way that it worked for me, or you're doing it wrong. And I'm just going to give you a hard time if I don't like what you're doing. And I'm not going to associate with you or things like that. And that's a religion. That's, if you're familiar with the Bible, Jesus never gave people whose lives were unmanageable a hard time. Tax collectors were really despised in that time because they were sketchy, and they were working for the bad guys, and they were taking advantage of their own people, and they were overcharging them, and they lived lavish lifestyles, and they were collecting too much taxes, and the people knew it, and they didn't like them. So tax collectors were the scum of the earth to the Jewish people. And so, Jesus hung out with tax collectors and drunks and prostitutes. Now, he didn't participate in their activities, but he was willing to hang out with them and help them and teach them and heal them. And so, but the people that Jesus gave a hard time to were the religious leaders who thought that they had their act together and their shit didn't stink, and they did a lot of sketchy stuff, and they just were arrogant and elitist, and they thought they were better than everybody else. And he there was being a hypocrite was a big issue for Jesus. He was like, don't pretend to be something that you're not. So if you came to Jesus and you were like, look, man, I'm whatever, I'm a drunk, I'm a prostitute, I'm a tax collector, I got problems in my life, I need help, then he would help you. But if you came to him and you said, look, I'm a Pharisee, and I pray every day for however many hours, and I fast this many times a week, and I go to church, and I got my act together, I don't need your help. He can't help you if you don't identify that there's a problem. He can't help you. But he made it clear to them that they didn't understand God and how God works, because so that's how I was. I thought, hey, I go to church, I pray, I read the Bible, I give money to the church, I try to be a good guy, and then I also want to get drunk, and I also want to sell drugs, and I want to do drugs, and I want to take advantage of addict females who are willing to do things with me that I shouldn't be doing with them because they want my drugs, and it was their idea, so it's not my fault. And I didn't have a lot of integrity, but I was a productive member of society, and from the outside, everybody thought that I was doing good, because they're like, you got a house, you got a family, you take care, you pay your bills, you got a car, you got a cell phone, did good in school, whatever it is. And so, like, I was just like that. I was a Pharisee. I was like, God, you got to help me do what I need to do, because I'm a Christian, and, I'm not that bad of a guy. And so until my world fell down around me, and I had to acknowledge my need for his help and start being honest with him and open-minded, and be willing to do the things that he wanted me to do instead of the things that I wanted to do all the time. I wasn't willing to sacrifice anything. And when I started to get the discipline to do that, I've seen my life change. I'm doing a lot better than I was 5 years ago. I'm a lot healthier. My brain is working a lot better. I'm able to help other people. I'm a productive member of society again, but I'm not doing shady stuff in addition. I'm trying to improve my life. So, that is the difference. He said recovery is not concentrating on not doing bad things. It's concentrating on trying to progress in your life and character development and build good things in your life. So, as far as I'm concerned, you know, I've removed the things from my life that were making my life unmanageable. I'm building healthy relationships with God and other people. I'm trying to help people, and I'm putting garbage in, garbage out is another saying. So I'm trying to put good things in, and I'm seeing improvement in my life. So, I'm calling it simply recovery because, I know that, I can't go back to that lifestyle. I don't want to. I almost killed myself, but, I'm gaining a little bit of self control, but I'm also, I'm willing to be open to what God has to say through other people and through reading and, through intuition and, praying and meditating. And, if God feels like there's something sitting in his seat, I mean, his biggest issue in the Old Testament was idolatry. And, we laugh about that now in the modern age. It's like, they had like gold and wooden and, metal gods that they made that they prayed to and all kind of crazy stuff. And, we look at that now in a modern age and we're like, what? These guys got this God who is like all powerful and willing to help them. And then they got these little trinkets and little gods in their house, their household gods, and they're praying to them for fertility and money and, healing and stuff. I mean, you know, that's stupid. That's how we look at it. But, all of these things, when really I decided to quit selling drugs because I'd been doing it on small time level for 35 years, I had it in my head that I needed to do that. I need this money to help pay my bills. In reality, I was fooling myself. I didn't use it for that. Sometimes I'd use some money for something like that, go to the grocery store, but that's also how I funded my drug habit. And God told me that that was an idol in my life, and I had to be willing to put it down. And I was scared. I thought that I needed that income to survive, and that is idolatry because that is not trusting God. He says that He'll supply all my needs. So if I'm like, well, I know you said you would supply all my needs, but if I don't sell a little weed on the side, I'm not going to be able to pay my rent. That's not trusting God. That's not faith. And so I have to be willing to believe. We came to believe that a power greater than ourselves could restore us to sanity. And so I have to be willing to trust God and then, be patient and watch him work. And he's not going to work at my pace. That's something that I've learned. He always takes longer than I want him to. And I can get impatient and I can say, okay, I gave you enough time. You're not doing it. So obviously I need to, there's action required on my part. Well, that's an ongoing thing you have to learn. I mean, you look in the Old Testament and, God tells Abraham that, when he's like almost 100 years old, that he's going to have a child and his wife's 10 years younger than him. That does not make any sense. And so, they wait for a while and it's not happening. And so then they're like, oh, we got to figure this out. This is like some kind of a puzzle, so they try to do it in the natural. Abraham ends up having sex with one of his slave women. It's his wife's idea. So he's like, yeah, that sounds cool. And, that's not what God wanted him to do. He told him that him and his wife were going to have a baby, and they decided to try to make it work. And so from the time that God told him that, when he was almost 100, I mean, it took 25 years for this kid to be born. And, so here I am, God's telling me that I need to stop doing a behavior. This is disrespectful to him. It's hurting me. And he'll take care of it if I, surrender to his will. He hadn't made me wait 25 years. So, I mean, that's the kind of stuff we learn from reading the Bible if we're paying attention. if we're willing to listen, if we're open-minded to hear the message, and then we're willing to apply it in our lives. So, same thing with recovery. We have to be willing to put the work in and be patient and, have some delayed gratification. So, anyway, uh, this is. Uh, this is Roberto signing off. It's been 30 minutes. I like to keep my videos, short enough for people's attention spans. So, fight the good fight. You can do this. If nobody's told you that they love you today, I love you. That's something we learn in the program, that we get empathy for other people. We identify with their failures and mistakes because, it's something that I have failed lots and lots of times. But, I kept coming back and I didn't give up. And, you know, by God's grace, my life is a lot better. So if you have any questions, I'm not a doctor or a therapist or anything, but I do have 35 years of experience of what not to do. And I've got almost 3 years experience of what's worked for me. Um, so, feel free to reach out to me. Commenting on this video is not going to be a good way because I probably won't see it. But my personal email is paster67@hotmail.com, which is P as in Paul, IA, S as in Sam, T as in Tango, ER67@hotmail.com. If you shoot me an email and you put recovery or mindset recovery or something of that nature in the subject line, I will be willing to provide you with places to look on the internet and places to find literature, and maybe you just want to shoot the breeze or something. I'm not going to send you money. I haven't got to the point in my recovery where I've got a bunch of Bitcoin or anything. I'm not saying that that's going to happen, but it definitely hasn't happened yet. But I have more than enough. God's taking care of me. He's supplying my needs. I'm not withering away. I haven't lost my house, and life is going well. So I'll be willing to help you because we keep what we have by giving it away. So have a good day, and this is Roberto signing off.